Okay, so we are going to start our first flipped classroom in our grammar unit, and that deals with pronouns. So pronouns are something that you should remember from elementary school, earlier in middle school, and they seem fairly easy, but as we move into more complex grammar, they get a little bit more complicated. So please remember that when you see this pencil, you need to be taking notes. Last time we did flip classrooms, I allowed you to take notes on the computer and submit them from school into Schoology. This time it's going to be different. You need to either take notes in a notebook so that you can show me during class, or you need to print the note guide off of Schoology and fill it out. I suggest printing the note guide because it'll save you a lot of writing. So pronouns, the first thing we'll look at is what a pronoun is. So a pronoun is a word that takes the place of a noun. So you probably remember from elementary school that a noun is a person, place, thing, or idea. Fairly simple. So some examples of pronouns that probably come to mind right away are I, you, he, she, it, we, and they. Very common pronouns. There are, however, more pronouns that might not come directly to mind when you're asked what a pronoun is. So here are some examples of more pronouns. So this chart is in your Schoology notes. So if you have, that's why having the printed version is very helpful. So what I want you to do is I want you to notice that beside each pronoun there is either an S, a P, or a B. And what I want you to do in your notes is to go through the list and correctly identify each pronoun as either S, P, or B. So what the S stands for is singular. The P stands for plural, and the B stands for both. So that means that the word could either be singular or it could be plural. So if you need to, pause the video and make sure you get those all copied. So the reason why it was important that you knew if the pronoun was singular, plural, or both is because pronouns need to match in number with the noun that they're replacing. It's very important, and I see this mistake a lot in your papers. All the pronoun stuff that I'm going to review in this PowerPoint, it was chosen because many of you have these exact problems in your writing. So it's important that everyone actually does pay attention to this. So let's look at an example. The players on the team needed his or her or their uniforms to play. We know that players is the noun, so we need to choose a pronoun that matches players in number. So players has an S, so it's plural, so we know that we need the plural pronoun. So the correct answer would then be the players on the team needed their uniforms to play. And I know that little check is a math symbol, but it's the closest thing to a check mark that I could find. So let's look at another example. Each player needed his or her or their uniform to play. So here the subject or the noun that's going to be replaced is each. And so we look at our list that you should have in front of you, and we see that each is singular. So we need the singular pronoun to replace the noun. So each player needed his or her uniform to play. So let's look at some of the pronouns that can be both singular and plural. So here's the example. None of the players remembered his or her or their uniform. So none is the noun that we're looking at, and we need to decide if it's singular or plural. So in order to do that, we need to look at what none is referring to. So none is referring to the players. And because players is plural, that makes none plural, meaning that we need a plural pronoun to replace the plural noun. So none of the players remembered their uniform. So I'll say that again. None, we need to look at what it refers to. So it refers to players. Players is plural. So we know that none then becomes plural. So none needs the plural there to replace it. Okay, the second example, the players were given pie and none was eaten. So none is replacing pie, and this isn't, in this example, it's singular. All right. So here are some examples. I want you to pause the video right now and do the examples. You have them on your worksheet or your notes sheet. So pause it now and do them. All right, so let's go over the answers for the first sentence. Some of the salt spilled out of their or its container. So some was one of those words that could be both. So we look at what it refers to. So some refers to salt, which is singular. So that means that some is singular, meaning that we choose the singular pronoun its as the replacement. Second example. Neither the teacher nor the students were prepared for his or their presentation. So we can look at our list and we see that neither is singular because when you say neither, you're talking about one or the other of what it's talking about. So you could say the teacher was not prepared for his presentation and the student was not prepared for his presentation. So singular neither, singular his or her pronoun. Okay, third example. Everyone should take their or his or her everyone should make their or his or her own decisions. So everyone, if we look at our list, we saw that it was singular, so that we know that we need the singular pronoun to replace it, so it's his or her. Everyone and words like that are sometimes confusing because you think it's talking about a large body, but it's not, so it should be singular. Okay, fourth example. When a student does not agree with his or their teacher's decision, that student should talk to the teacher. So the noun here was student. Student is singular. So we know that we need the singular pronoun his to replace it. Last example. The bride and groom took his or their vows. So the noun is a compound. So bride and groom, which is plural. So it's there. Okay. Now we're going to talk about the use of you. So I've noticed this a lot in some of your papers, and I've been marking it, but I want to make sure that I address it with you specifically because I want to make sure there's no confusion. So when you use you in your writing, you are talking directly to the reader. So for example right now, I can say you because I know that I am talking to you, my students. The only time that you should use you is when you know who you are directly talking to. So if you're writing a personal letter, maybe you are writing to a specific group of people. Like I am presenting to a specific group of people, my students. So I can say you. But when you say you in a paper, you're addressing the reader. But sometimes the topic of the paper does not apply to the reader. So you want to refrain or try not to use you in academic papers. So let's look at an example why you would not want to say you in an academic paper. Think about using this example as in your introduction. Think about the last time that you broke your leg. When you broke your leg, you probably had to go to the hospital and get a cast. That would be an okay hook. It would be semi-interesting and it might pull the reader's attention. However, you are saying, think about when you broke your leg. What if the reader never broke his or her leg? Well, then you are excluding those readers. You're asking them to draw on experiences that they don't have. So let's think of another example. If you were to say, someday you might get pregnant. Well, that automatically cuts your audience in half. Half of your readers, if it was split evenly between male and female, are already excluded from your example because men can't get pregnant. So really try, remember, refrain from using you in academic papers. There are lots of different ways that you can rephrase your examples so that you don't use you. It's all a matter of wording. Okay, the last thing that we're going to talk about is unclear pronoun references, which I saw a lot in your papers. I saw a lot of you usage as well, but unclear pronoun references. Okay, you need to make sure that readers know and remember what your pronoun refers to. Okay. You need to make sure that readers know or remember what your pronoun refers to. So there are times when the pronoun can refer to more than one thing or person. So let's look at this example. Even though Mr. Kosh likes art and physical activity, he is too busy during the week to do both, so he often neglects it. So the it is correct because I'm referring to one of the activities that he neglects to do. However, because I say it and there are two activities, you are unsure which activity that he neglects. So let's look at how you correct it. Even though Mr. Kosh likes art and physical activity, he is too busy during the week to do both, so he often neglects doing art. So here, I made sure that you know that which activity he neglects doing. All right, let's look at another example. Lizzie told her mother that her sweater had a hole in it. So here, we don't know who the her refers to. It could be that Lizzie told her mother that Lizzie's sweater had a hole in it, or it could be Lizzie told her mother that her mother's sweater had a hole in it. So we could correct it to be Lizzie told her mother, your sweater has a hole in it. So now we know that the mother's sweater is the one that has the hole. So you want to make sure that it's clear what your pronoun is referring to. When writing, you also want to make sure that you remind the writer periodically what the pronoun refers to. So I would say you don't want to go more than 2 or 3 sentences, and even I think that is pretty long, maybe 1 to 2 sentences without referring back to the pronoun. If you have too many pronouns, the reader can easily forget what you're referring to. And I always tell my students, treat your reader like they're a little dumb. You want to make sure that everything is exactly clear. There's no confusion whatsoever. Even if you think it's clear because you're the one reading, you want to make sure that it is crystal clear so that the reader knows exactly. And they don't have to spend extra work looking back to the beginning of the paragraph to see who you're talking about. So let's look at this example. Jack and Portia are similar characters because they both like to talk to people. Talking to people is something that can be seen many times throughout the book and the play. He talked to people like Ralph, Piggy, and Simon. We can also see that she talked to people too. So here, he is obviously referring to Jack. But because it's a little later in the paragraph and you've only mentioned Jack one time, it would be easy for the reader to forget who he was. So, and she as well. She is even further down in the paragraph. So let's look at, So let's look at how we could fix that. Jack and Portia are similar characters because they both like to talk to people. Talking to people is something that can be seen many times throughout the book and the play. Jack talked to people like Ralph, Piggy, and Simon. We can also see that Portia talked to people too. I think when I created this, it got deleted, but that's how you would fix it. You just want to make sure that you use the noun again so that readers are reminded of who you're speaking about. All right, so you also want to be careful when using this and that. This and that should refer to specific things and not to a whole paragraph or a large idea. So using the same example, it goes a little further. So Jack and Portia are similar characters because they both like to talk to people. Talking to people is something that can be seen many times throughout the book and the play. Jack talked to people like Ralph, Piggy, and Simon. We can also see that Portia talked to people too. She spoke to people like her husband Brutus and to their servant. Because of this, readers can see that Portia and Jack are similar characters. So the this in this paragraph refers to pretty much the whole paragraph and the whole large idea and all the examples that you use. And that is too much for that little pronoun to handle. So this can easily be fixed with a little rewording. So here we can see, I'm not going to read you that whole paragraph again, but let's look at the last sentence. Readers can clearly see that talking to people is a similarity between Portia and Jack. So I eliminated the this, and now my concluding sentence reminds readers exactly what the this in the first paragraph was talking about. So readers can clearly see that talking to people is a similarity between Portia and Jack. Okay, so that's it for pronouns. What you're going to do now is you're going to do some of the examples that I have in Schoology. Some of them are required and some of them are optional. If you understand it perfectly well, only do some of them. If you're having trouble and missing a lot, I suggest doing the extra help. All right, goodbye.